If you're anything like me, first of all, I'm very sorry. Secondly, you probably watch a lot of YouTube videos about filmmaking. You're probably aware that cameras have differently sized sensors. Generally, you've got full-frame sensors and crop sensors. Here's a scene filmed with the same lens on two different cameras. This one has a full-frame sensor, this one has a cropped Super 35 sensor. You might have the idea that full-frame cameras are better than Super 35 cameras. It's 2024, why would you pick a camera with a smaller sensor? And I should say this, if you know that you need a full-frame camera, Godspeed to you. I'm not here to talk you out of it. I wanted to make this video because I think people may overhype the benefits of full frame. There are differences, but if you can't make a good-looking image with a crop sensor, a larger sensor isn't going to save you. There are some real benefits to crop sensor cameras, and you should consider what you really need rather than give in to the hype. My favorite camera I've ever used is my Canon C70. It's filming me right now. It has a Super 35mm sensor. I have other full-frame cameras I could be using, but 9 times out of 10, I reach for my GOAT, and here's why. Crop sensor lenses are just gonna be cheaper, smaller, and lighter than their full-frame counterparts. There's just less stuff inside of it, less material. I don't care that much about rocking a big heavy lens myself, but I do care about the cost. One of my most used lenses is the Sigma 18-35 f1.8. This lens has been famous on filmmaking YouTube since 2013. You can buy it today, new, for $689. It's a killer lens and still packs a punch in 2024. And it only covers a crop sensor. Throw it on a full-frame camera, and you get this nonsense. However large or expensive a lens might be, the ultimate difference a full-frame lens versus a crop sensor lens makes to your final image is the field of view. Here's that same scene we filmed with a full-frame camera and a Super 35 camera. Obviously, the same lens on a camera with a smaller sensor yields a narrower field of view than when it's attached to a full-frame camera. This is often presented as a downside for a Super 35 sensor, and I can see why it feels that way. You're losing out on all this extra information in the scene. But for me, I'm rarely in a setup where I wish I had a wider field of view. Usually, I wish that I could zoom in further. That might not be the case for you, but I am frequently in that position. We talked about how full-frame lenses are more expensive than their Super 35 counterparts, and the same is true for the cameras. Let's take a look at Canon's camera lineup. If I wanted to buy a new, latest model camera that could record in 4K, has internal ND filters, a full-sized HDMI port, built-in XLR inputs, C-Log2, and a full-frame sensor, the cheapest option on B&H is the just-announced C400 going for $8,000. At that point, just get an FX6 or do something else. But if I could be flexible on the whole full frame deal, I could pick up the C70 for $5,000. Is a full frame sensor worth $3,000 extra dollars? For me, it is not. Now, you might have different requirements than I do. Maybe you really do care about having a full frame sensor and don't need internal NDs or Canon Cinema operating system. The R5 Mark II might be the move for you. But I've found that I really value the supporting features on the C70 more than I miss a full-frame body. These features can be had if you let go of a full-frame requirement. I film with my C70 10 times more often than my R5C, even though the R5C is a full-frame powerhouse. The reason is that there's just less friction filming with the C70. The battery lasts way longer, and I don't need to rig it out to accept XLR inputs. They are mini XLR inputs, but that's not a big deal. If you still think you really need a full-frame camera, let me throw one more thing at you. Speed boosters. You can just adapt full-frame lenses to a Super 35 body and get the full-frame field of view, or very close to it, with a speed booster. Canon makes a 0.17x magnifier speed booster adapter that also gets you a stop more light. And this is part of why the C70 is such a brilliant camera, because there are so many amazing full-frame EF lenses out there that are getting cheaper and cheaper as the rest of the world is suckered in by the new lenses built for mirrorless mounts. And admittedly, the new RF lenses do seem amazing, but an EF lens that was good 15 years ago is still a good lens today. If I can get out over my skis a little bit here, I think we'll look back on this era of filmmaking and notice that it will be defined by, in part, filming with cameras with large sensors, wide lenses, close to the subject with a very shallow depth of field. This is just what the technology enables the more large sensors become more and more accessible, and there's nothing wrong with it. These movies, a lot of them, they're completely gorgeous, and I can only dream to make something 1% as impressive someday. You can absolutely make beautiful images with larger sensors that you just can't achieve with smaller ones. But I'll be honest with you viewers, I am not Hoytje van Hoytema. I'm not Christopher Nolan. I haven't maxed out the Super 35 format just quite yet. I still have a long way to go before the size of the sensor in my camera is preventing me from achieving the images I want. I am not Hoytje van Hoytema. I am not Christopher Nolan. Why is that the one that screwed me up?